Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the third part in this series, where in this video I will be showing you how to do an upward and downward facing forward perspective. So in parts 1 and 2 we just did forward facing and a profile, and this one we're going to do upward and downward, looking up and looking down. The differences and the extremes of how far or how far down or how far up somebody's looking will vary. So you'll have to adjust what I show you depending on how far up or down you want someone to be looking. Just to review, this is the Royal and Langnickel hard or medium charcoal pencil. This is the Derwent, I think this is the dark charcoal pencil. It's much softer. This is the one we initially sketch with, is the Royal and Langnickel, because it's drier, less powdery, you know, it's a lighter tone of black. And I usually just use this darker one to go in after I've done the first round of shading, just to darken some stuff up, and after we've done some highlights. Then I have my little shader brush. It's just an old makeup brush with a rounded tip on it, so you can get into some pretty small spaces. You can use a paper blending stump if you want to, or anything else. You can also use pencil, color pencil. You can use whatever you want. I just use these because they're easy for you to see, easy for me to see. There's no glare, and they're easy to shade. All right, so first we'll be doing the upward facing, front upward facing perspective. In the first one we just started with the two guidelines that are side by side. So as I said, in the first one we just did two parallel lines side by side, vertical. For the upward facing portrait, front facing, these lines are still going to be next to each other, but they're going to be pointing upward. So that should already tell you if something looks like this, then it's going to be looking up. If something's looking like this, it's going to be down. So it's initially like we're using arrows. So you don't even have to angle these very much. And that's probably already too much, but we'll see where it goes. And these might look slightly exaggerated, but you get the idea. I mean, this is just a demonstration to show you just how this works. Okay, so as with our first one, you will use the top lines to be the eyebrows and the bottom line to be your nose. Now, because this person's looking up and they're not looking straight at us, the straight one, looking with the parallel lines looking straight, the lines are going straight across. So you put your eyebrows here and your nose here, just on an imaginary straight line. But because this is pointed upward, these lines, these imaginary lines, are going to be arched. So what that's going to look like when you draw the eyebrows is, here's one eyebrow, here's two eyebrows. And notice the eyebrows are not going to be as long or as wide as they would be in a front facing person. They're going to be kind of pointed down at the edges, and there's not going to be as much of them showing. Like the arch of the brow and all that stuff isn't going to be as evident. And this is just to mark them in place. I'm really not going to get too into the details of the eyebrows right now. So I'm going to come down a little bit and do the, you know, where the nose bridge would meet the eyebrows. And that's going to be, again, not straight up and down like before. It's going to be pointed kind of inward. All right. Now, across this line, see, this was angled or arched, this is also going to be arched. So you would imagine if you were going to draw a line from here to here, somewhere along the middle here is going to be your nose, and it is going to be arched, as in it's pointing to the edges of these lines. This might not be the prettiest portrait, but again, it's just for demonstration purposes. And you can even out your eyebrows if you feel like one's too far over or whatever. You can kind of already see the where you'd be putting the rest of the eye. And I have a couple of erasers. I have a Tombow mono eraser. I think it's like a 2mm eraser. This is the one I use the most. It's probably the 5-6mm. I think it's a 5mm Tombow mono eraser. And then I have a slightly larger stick eraser. This is just a Staedtler Mars white eraser, which I hardly erase when I'm doing the initial setup, but this kind of got away from me a little bit here, so I'm gonna fix that. And yeah, I know this is looking a little weird right now, but so this is where you take your first measurement, and usually, if not always, on anybody, the distance between the eyebrow and the nose is also, and it's the corner, the top corner of the eyebrow and the corner of the nose is going to be the same distance to the chin. Now, even with the perspective being upward facing, this still works, but it's because of the way we're laying down the line in an arch is why it works. So again, I'm going to take this measurement, corner of the eyebrow, corner of the nose. I'm going to move down here, and this is where you're going to put the chin. But the chin will be arched slightly, though. It's not going to be as arched as the, I used my dark one, wrong side of the pencil. It's not going to be as arched because as the face comes downward, everything up here is further away, everything here is closer to you, so the lines aren't going to be as arched. This is going to be pretty arched. The nose is going to be super arched because it's not only right in the middle, but it protrudes more than anything else on the face. So it's going to be pretty arched, and the chin is going to be arched, but not as much. So in between the nose and the chin, you'll have your mouth. But before we put the mouth in, we're going to go ahead and mark in the eyes, and we're going to do the rest of the nose, because doing the rest of the nose really, really helps place the mouth, especially during doing this perspective. So as in the first one, after you do your little nose bridge, eyebrow connection here, you'll put the corners of the eyes in. Little eye corner dots. I'm going to use those to mark my eyes. And as with everything else, we are arching upward. And especially because the eyes are round, they're going to be pretty arched. You're going to follow the arch line of the eyebrow. This is a little bit hard for me to see right now, but I am aware that my other eyebrow is like really bothering me here. I'm gonna fix it. Sometimes I wish I was like drawing with two hands at the same time so that like both sides would just come out even. It's something I wanna do. I wanna figure that out. Drawing with both hands. Wouldn't that be such a like a time saver too? Just like draw both sides of the face at the same time. Oh gosh, yeah, these eyebrows are gonna need some work, and it's also because they are not straight on that the details of them are not going to be that evident. So they can kind of chill like that for a few. All right. So I'm going to darken the corners of the eyes just to make sure those are pretty well established. And just as a side note, or just something to be aware of, the end corner of your eye always aligns with the arch of the brow. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to have this person looking up because the head is positioned upward. So because also the eyes are looking up, the irises are going to be elliptical. They're not going to be perfectly round. If they're perfectly round, they're going to look weird. So you're going to draw these little ovals, wide ovals. And we can always fix the exact position of that later, but you know, generally they just kind of sit right there in the arch. And also because this person's looking up, the bottom lid isn't going to be all that evident. And sometimes it looks better if you just kind of leave it out, because this is the main focus here, or not focus, but the main value, I guess you could say, the dark portion of this, where you want the attention to be. All right, so we're going to come to the nose, and you're going to make the sides of the nose little parentheses on the outsides of this arch that we've made here. I'm going kind of heavy on that, but and I kind of liked the way that this helps line up the nostrils and everything. It ends up looking pretty accurate, actually. So that's something I struggled with when I was first doing these, is positioning the nostrils first and then trying to draw the nose around it, but actually it works much better this way. So you're going to do your little parentheses, and because the nose looks kind of wider when you're looking up and you've got that up the nose view, now you're going to come down the middle of the nose and you're going to draw two lines. Your little septum, I think that's called, right? And I'm going to take my eraser, my 5mm, and I'm just going to erase that middle line, the one that made the arch. So now you have a nice placement for the nose and the nostrils. So I'm going to color in the nostrils a little bit, shade them in, and that really establishes where they go. And again, you know, everything's arched because it's all, everyone's looking up, the face is round, everything's, you know, even though the things are a combination of angles and curves, there's a lot of curvature happening when you're doing this upward perspective. So the mouth. The mouth's a bit tricky, but once you position it with the arch, it should be pretty easy to build around it. So all I'm going to do is measure between the nose and the chin, which is basically right here, you know, just the center of the mouth. I mean, as you can see, it's, if this person didn't have like really full lips, you know, it would be in the right spot. And because the mouth is closer to us as the viewer than the eyes, then it's going to be slightly larger looking. It's going to be a little wider. So you can really play around with this, depending on if the person's mouth's partially open, which sometimes it looks that way when somebody's looking in this position. Now the top lip is going to be very arched. And from this spot, going into the arch direction with the top lip, it's going to get closer to the nose, and it's going to get very close to the nose. But the Cupid's bow isn't going to be as pronounced. In fact, it might even look a little flat. And this bottom lip is also going to be arched, but not as much as the top lip. And it's just going to give a little indication of a lip, because kind of like the bottom lid of the eyes, there is not going to be a lot of detail to be seen from this angle. When you're looking at someone straight on, anything curving down like the lower lid or the lower lip is going to cast a shadow, but not very much when you're looking at someone this way. All right, so here's kind of another interesting and fun part. We're gonna follow this arch, and this is going to give you the hairline. I'm gonna kind of make a broken line. I'm not gonna do it too solid or anything. So I'm gonna kind of create some hair. And this part is also somewhat interesting and kind of tricky, because now, even though this has all been done on curved lines initially, or, you know, imaginarily, we are still going to build the side of the jaw and the side of the face the same way we would as we did in the front facing. We're going to come down straight, even though this was off of a curve. Now what's going to happen when we use these lines straight after we've been doing all that curvature work is this line here crosses a bit. Not only is that going to kind of help indicate where the hair will fall, but it's also the top of the ear. So you don't really have to measure where would the ear go if it's supposed to be aligned with the eyes, because here we are. And so now we're going to come down and draw your ear, and the ear would normally be aligned with the mouth, which curves and would be touching about here. So that's about where your ear will stop. Curve the mouth, touch right here. This is where your ear will go. And you're gonna make another inward line for the jaw there. So also what's a trip about this is when something's looking straight, like I said before, these lines don't change. Only the bottom of the chin would have been here. Bottom of the chin is here because it's been curved. So we're going to kind of bring the neck in a little bit and down. So you'll be coming down and the shoulders will be kind of pointing downward as well. And the throat will be showing a lot. So you'll have this kind of indent here where you'll get a really good view of the trachea there and the little hyoid bone. I remember these things from beauty school, believe it or not. I never really took anatomy or anything, but we had to do a lot of head and neck anatomy. Yes, beauticians don't just do superficial things. We actually had to learn some medical stuff. Now I'm going to shade the cheekbones in a little bit, and you can kind of mess with this part a little bit, and you know, depending on if you're doing a photo reference or just drawing from imagination how you want it to look. If a person's head's tilted a little bit, or you know, if they're in really dramatic lighting. But initially, we have mapped our upward facing perspective. So I'm going to come in and do just a little bit of shading after. Let me see. Let's give this person some hair. And remember, we're not going to be doing too much of the top of the head because we can't see the top of the head from here. I'm going to do a little bit of hairline. And their hair might be falling behind a little bit because they're tilted their head back. And there's a little bit of hair always that comes in front of the ear there. So I'm just going to shade a little bit, and then I'll come in and do a little bit more detail like the eyelashes and maybe refine the shape a little bit. And there's still a decent amount of shadow underneath the top lip, and not a whole lot of shadow at all on the bottom lip because this person's looking up, and so the light is directly hitting that bottom lip. That is if your light source is coming from above. The top of the nose, or I should say that the edge, the tip of the nose, is still going to be darker right there. It's gonna create a little bit of a shadow because we're looking at it this way. So I'm gonna come down just a little bit with the sides of the bridge, and this is not going to be straight. You really have to, like, everything's going to be super curved. And you'll know because you'll if you do too straight, it'll look weird. And that's kind of the thing with this is you know, even if it's not, you know, it's not the best looking as far as detail and whatever, your placement, you know, you put everything where it belongs and it should look right as far as the perspective you're trying to achieve. I'm going to draw a little highlight line right here, just because that just, you know, gives it some more definition. And the lines you would put in somebody's lip, they go vertically and they're curved. So if you don't want to do too much detail, but you want to get an indication of some depth, that's one way to do it. I'm going to darken her nostrils quite a bit. And this paper does not have a lot of tooth, so this real powdery charcoal is not wanting to stick to it. To use the darker end again, and we're going to just kind of define the eyebrows a little more. And I'm going to straight up and down is how these eyelashes are going to go. So I'm just going to start in the middle, flick upward and out. This charcoal pencil is not going to be getting very much detail because it's so soft, but you go toward the edge, outer edge of the eye, and emphasize it there. It should give a lot more drama, a lot more value to the eye. I'm going to go into the upper inner portion of the lip, and I'm going to make it really, really dark right here. Only in the very center, because that's the most arched part, and the bottom lip is kind of hiding these side parts of the top lip, so that's why I'm only doing it right there. And then at the outer corners. And I'm going to make sure this is straight by just going up and down the center here with my eraser. A little highlight at the top of the lip. A little highlight on the chin. And you can take this pretty far with your shading if you want to. I mean, you know, again, I'm just showing you guys where things go. If you really want to take this further, you can. The shading under the chin, the neck, isn't going to be as extreme as it would be if the person's head is down or looking straight on, because the head looking up is exposing more light to this area. It's still going to be in shadow, but it's not going to be as dramatic. And that was another one of the mistakes that I was making when I first started doing this upward facing. I keep wanting to call it like the upward facing profile, but it's not a profile. Ugh. Yeah, is I would shade under the neck too much, and then it would just look weird. And I'm like, why doesn't this look right? But that's why. And so also the sides of the neck are going to be a little bit lighter, of course, than the middle. Almost like a highlight in a way. Because there's more light exposure from the sides, since they're not looking down and the hair's not covering this area. And again, you know, your lighting situations will vary, but this is just where things go. So just as this arch where the chin points up is probably gonna have the most shadow right here, just directly under the chin, but not on the neck. And I'm just blending that in a little bit so you can see what I mean. Maybe a little bit right in the center. I'm gonna darken the ear areas a little bit, but I'm gonna go in with my very dark pencil here and do a little bit of shading behind the ear. And a little bit next to where the hair meets the face, and a little bit behind the neck and the jaw. I mean, compositionally, I like the way this looks, but I'm not, you know, I don't usually look at portraits this way. They're usually straight on or 3/4 or even profile now, but you know, I don't do this position a whole lot. I mean, I would have had other elements in here, like if you had like falling leaves or a sky above with stars, you know, and you wanted to incorporate some type of like feeling of wonder or something like that, you know. This is a good position to put your character in, your portrait character. So yeah, we'll move on to the next one. I'm just doing a little bit of shading here, and There's not going to be a whole lot of detail in this one. Also because, you know, they're not looking straight on, so it's not like you can do a whole lot with the what you would normally do with the eyes and stuff like that. But you can get pretty pretty into the shading, you know, like the way that the face is shaped, and bring that shading around the chin and stuff. And yeah, you know, I just feel like I'm not doing enough because I usually work on the eyes a lot, but there's really not a whole lot to do when the eyes aren't as prominent. I'm going to use my tiny mono TOMBOW eraser and try to do a little bit of highlight in the eye. I didn't really do a pupil or anything. If you were to do, you know, if this was a larger portrait and you could see more of the detail in the eyes, you could do the pupil, but it would just be like near the edge of the eyelid, the top eyelid. And you're going to have probably a lot more highlight directly down on the face than you would for any other facial position. So like right smack down on her forehead and nose bridge, you're going to have the most light. And I'm going to take this hairline back just a little bit. But depending on how much hair your person has or how high up their forehead is, it's not going to vary a whole lot. It's going to be about how you shade it. And sometimes less is more with that. It's not going to be too rounded up here. It's very, very arched, but there's not going to be like any of the top of the head showing. So just keep that in mind. If you get too carried away, you know, and you start doing that, it's going to look weird really fast. And you're going to wonder what happened. So you've been warned. That seems to be where I mess it up a lot. I start doing too much up here and I'm like, oh, okay, how are we seeing that when that's not visible? Very interesting how the slightest amount of curvature or angular change can just really dramatically affect how 3D objects are rendered on a flat surface. Okay, so looks like my nose center is maybe a little bit off. So I'm going to, this is the, you know, kind of the cool thing with the eraser and just like measuring the straight line down the middle is no matter how much something is angled, the line down the middle is always going to be straight. So it's going to match with the top of the lip, Cupid's bow. It's going to match with the top of the nose and the center of the eyebrows. And then you can just go back in and darken your nostrils. Well, you know, like I've said a million times before, it's not a masterpiece, but that'll just give you an idea of correct placement while you're trying to draw something from imagination or just trying to get something in the right place even when you're doing a photo reference. So we will move on to the downward facing perspective. So this is very similar. Everything's just going to be opposite. So here we're going to start with our 2 lines. They're not going to be parallel. They're going to be pointing, instead of angled this way, they're going to be angled this way. And you know, they're lines, you know, they don't have to be absolutely straight. I do curve them slightly, because even though this is an angle we're following, it's also a curve. So, all right, first placement, we're looking down. Everything's going to be curving this way now. We're going to be doing our eyebrows first. Eyebrows go on this curved line and they match up with the top of these 2 lines, but you're going to take the top of that line and you're going to curve it and match to the other side. Do this a couple times with your pencil hovering over the paper, not making a mark, and you'll know where your eyebrows are going to go. And again, like with the top one, the arch of the brow and the shape of the brow isn't going to be as defined because it's on a curve. And you can mess with that later if you really want to. If you really want to try to give this person some dramatic eyebrows, you'd have to do it after it's been already laid down in the right place. Okay, are we in the middle here? Are we centered? Everything's in the center. And I know that's why people usually draw a line and they draw the crisscross marks and stuff, but like I had mentioned before, I can't follow straight lines anyway, so I'm just gonna fix this one a little bit. It's just a little bit too far over. And I'm just going to try to kind of make it look like the other side a little bit better. All right, so again, as with the eyebrows, we're following this curved line from the top. Now the curved line we're following from the bottom of these 2 lines is going to be the nose. And this might look a little extreme to you, like, wow, the nose is going to be that long, but it's the tip of the nose that you're drawing. So and I might have drawn that too short, but it just looks so long, you know, and so I'm demonstrating that, yeah, you can absolutely misjudge it, or it just looks kind of off to you, but you can, you know, you can erase it like I just did. I'm going to draw a dot for what I think is the very middle, because I really have a hard time with eyeballing centers, because my vision shifts so much and it will like move to the left when I'm blinking, but you know. So let's follow this line again. Does it match up? Yeah, matches up. Good enough. Okay. So as with the top one and with the other ones, you measure from your corner of the nose, which would be here, not the edge of the nose, not the tip of the nose, but the corner. Take the corner of the nose, corner of the eyebrow, come down here, and you will have your chin. Chin is going to be extremely angled, like the top of this forehead here, the top of the head. You will not be seeing it. Underneath this chin, you'll not be seeing anything. And like with the sides of the face here, you can go a little more straight. Because this is a jaw, so jaws have a little bit of a straight, you know, angle. I slightly went out of order by doing the sides of the face here, but I just wanted to show you how this connects. And we're going to do the inner corners of the eyes right now. So we're going to come down just a little bit after doing somewhat of the little bit of the nose bridge here. And we're going to put a little dot for the corner, the corner of the eye. And as with any of these measurements, the arch, where the arch of the brow would meet, would be the edge of your outer corner of your eye. So and just like with the ears on this one, it kind of naturally found its way there. The top of the ear matches up with the eye in this curvature. So naturally you're going to see this kind of forming right there at the top of the ear there. And you're going to bring it down a bit. I'm not going to draw the bottom of the ear yet because I want to put the mouth in. So which we will be doing right now. Between the mouth and, the nose and the chin, you will find the mouth, and we're just going to make a little line right here to indicate that. And the mouth isn't going to have a whole lot of detail, kind of like the eyes up here. They're furthest away, where the mouth is closest. Here the eyes are the closest, eyes and the nose, and the mouth is further. So, I'm going to curve it because we're looking down at it. Top of the lip, almost going to be touching the nose. And the bottom lip isn't going to be super visible. It's just going to be a little indication there. And the mouth's going to look pretty small. So as you can see, this is extreme. Like it's pretty dramatic. It's not like, you know, this is again just for demonstration and position, you know, just to get the right placement. And the tops of the shoulders are going to be way more evident than the neck, because the neck is almost not going to be showing at all. And you can kind of mess around with that a little bit. You can look at some photo references. You can look at yourself. You can take a picture of yourself and look at it and just see like how much of your neck and shoulder, just where it meets, is really all you're going to be seeing. So for the simplicity's sake, again, this person isn't going to be looking up at us. They're going to be looking down, just like she's looking up, because, you know, her head's looking up, so she's looking up. This one is going to be looking down because they're looking down. So, you know, this will be something you can experiment with if you want to make this person's eyes open and looking up at you, this person's eyes looking down at you. You can kind of just mess around with that. So I'm just going to draw a little curved line for the top eyelid, back and forth between those two lines that we made for the eye corners. And you can adjust this, just make sure it's, you know, how you want it, straight. There's going to be a bit of an eye hollow right there where the lid, you know, sinks in slightly to the eye socket. but it's not going to be like super detailed or anything. It's just going to be a little shadow. And the outer corners of the nose, we're just going to curve them in a little bit. It's just the same thing, the little parenthesis lines, they just come out to the side. I'm going to put it like a little straight line here to indicate the shadow and highlight line. And there's going to be quite a bit of this person's top of their head showing. So I'm going to draw a little part line for their hair. And it's going to aim toward the ear, front of the ear, because that's what it would be doing in real life. And the bottom of this ear is going to match with the curvature of this mouth. So if the curvature of this mouth would continue on this way, upward, this is where your bottom of your ear is going to be. So right about here. And you're going to bring it down from where we did the top of the ear. So, and I'm really, I apologize if I'm not like the best at explaining things, but hopefully by showing you guys and if you're able to interpret my crazy explanations of things, then you might be able to do something with this information. I'm just shading in a little bit where the natural hollows of the eyes are, and kind of just redefining some of those eyebrow shapes. And the cool thing about the closed eyes, again, is you know, you can make your eyelashes very prominent in the downward position, just like with the upward position. You know, that's the one thing about when somebody's facing straight, is the eyelashes, because they're poking out at you, they're not as visible, the details of them, unless they're like fully curled up and they got a lot of makeup on or whatever, or they're fake lashes. But when someone's looking down or looking up, the eyelashes are really, really noticeable. And so eyelashes are kind of fun to draw on people who are in this facial position. I'm all carried away with eyelashes. And I'm going to widen the mouth just a bit, put the little dark corners in, and I'm going to do the little lip highlight, because some of it is showing just a bit. And the top lip is going to look pretty straight, if not curved like this. So it's not really a whole lot you can do with that position there. The lip is just gonna be where it's at. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. And we're going to curve around, come out to what would be the top back of the head. I can make a straight line, a very small straight line, because the head is never like completely egg-shaped round. It kind of has these flat areas around the middle and the top and the back. And maybe she has like this ponytail, and it sweeps around front. brush and shade a bit. And then I'll do the darker shading and put some highlights. And then that will do it for this one. And I'll be doing the 3/4, be working on the 3/4 view in the next one. That one's actually a little bit harder to explain, at least it was in my head when I was attempting to do it while I was practicing this stuff. But it does really help when you have a map and you don't have to redo it over and over again and you know, try to figure out why doesn't it look right and then try to do it until it looks right. You can just, you know, map it out and get the placement correct and then work on how you want it to look instead of working on how to make it look right the whole time. And then just feeling lucky if you got it right, you know. That's why I needed to come up with these formats. I needed to know before I invested a lot of time in something, you know, in a piece, that it was already going to have the right placement. So I could just have fun working on the details. Like I already said, I know these aren't masterpieces. They're not my usual go-to, you know, portrait styles, I guess you could say. But they are useful. They have, especially for compositions that you want to have a certain mood. And I have had fun figuring out something that's a little bit easier to remember and easier to replicate than the usual methods, which I don't know, they just never worked for me. So if you guys found this helpful and you want to see more little tips on how to map out these different facial positions, maybe what I was thinking of earlier today when I was working on these was that maybe working on different positions of the features like eyes, nose, lips, you know, because I guess if you're used to drawing things forward facing, then trying to draw a mouth or eyes in these different positions might be challenging. I'm just going by what I already know and then putting it into this different angle or this different arch or this position and just following it like a little dot to dot type of thing. You know, it just naturally connects. But if you guys want to see me do some specific things about eyes and different facial features, then I can go over that in another video, and that might help when trying to do these different, somewhat challenging face positions. Yeah, will do it. All right, guys, that'll do it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.